You see Witten's all-time ranks among tight ends right there. And he's up near the top in every major category.
Yep.
Cowherd, is Jason Witten a surefire Hall of Famer?
Yeah, I'm a numbers guy. You get into the emotion, and is he a good teammate and all this stuff. I'm like, give me numbers. Like, I remember Jim Rice, and I was a kid growing up. Everybody was like, Jim Rice, and I'm like, Steve Garvey's another one. Steve Garvey, I have a 10-year rule. Are you great for a decade? Steve Garvey, when I was a kid for a decade, was the best first baseman in the National League. That's a Hall of Famer. Jim Rice was the most feared slugger for 10 years in the American League. I'm sorry, but
Jason...
Jason...
love football?
Huh?
Do you love football?
I was at a
quarterback in high school. Do you love football?
I was at a college practice for 2 hours yesterday.
Yeah. So why does every time we talk about football, you got to go to basketball analogies, baseball analogies? Do you not understand football is special?
Yeah.
All these other sports, baseball, it's a stats-driven deal. Football is not a stats-driven deal. I don't care about fantasy football and all that. The Hall of Fame is about the greatest players.
You don't think he's great?
No, I think he's very, very productive. I think he's played for a long, long time. But when you go look at the tight ends, there's only like 8 in the Hall of Fame. And at some point, each one of these 8 guys, you was like, oh, man, he's brought something completely different to this position, and he's the best tight end in the game. And that's never been said about Jason Witten. Jason Witten puts up numbers year after year after year. Tony Gonzalez, 111 touchdowns. Antonio Gates, 111 touchdowns. Jason Witten, 63. Tight end, to me, and particularly at this time.
I'm not saying he's Kellen Winslow or Gronk.
Thank you.
Yeah, but
why diminish Kellen Winslow and them by putting the guy that was rock steady for a long time into the Hall of Fame?
There's a lot of people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame I wouldn't pay a ticket to see.
There we go. Football. Let's stick to football. Is different.
It's very hard for me to stick to.
And unique.
Well, you know, in football right now, you just mentioned Gronk, okay? Witten has done it longer, and he's done it more consistently than Gronk, okay? So I would put him above Gronk right now. I know you're talking about the specimen that Gronk is, but those numbers, they do sort of matter. You have to look at this. You're talking about, he's a receiver. You're talking about tight end and the touchdowns, you're looking at that, okay? Part of that job is receiving. We're not talking about just the tight ends. He's top 10 all time.
All time.
All time.
7th.
All time. Wait, hold on. I mean,
all time.
Wait, hold on.
Put him in the healthy. He's been healthy
in the history, we're talking about, let's stick to football. In the history of football, this guy is number 7 when it comes to receptions, a key stat. Now, another part of playing tight end is blocking. Part of the reason why Jason Witten doesn't have more touchdowns is because they kept him in, to max protect, because you had some bad offensive lines there.
For a long
He's a really
time.
good blocker in the red zone. You check out the film, he's not even out in the routes.
Right.
He doesn't have opportunity. So he's scoring his touchdowns from most of the time from distance. Because when they got close, they used him to block. And they were keeping him in. So that has a lot to do with his numbers as well.
And you wouldn't think of him this way, but if you think of the Gonzalez and the Gates, you think of guys that they isolate to get away from people and run away from people. Witten is a totally different tight end, and they use him exactly for that. He's a possession tight end. How do you move the chains? Mm-hmm. You go possession by possession, and that's what makes him so valuable. I'm telling you, he's one of the hardest tight ends to cover because that box that he works in, there's not a better tight end that works inside of that box than Jason Witten. So when you talk about is he a Hall of Famer, his body of work, production, staying healthy as long as he does, he has to be a Hall of Famer for the work that he's put.
I mean, listen, we're acting like production's a bad. Well, he was.
No, it's not bad thing. I'm not saying it's a bad.
You do fear. Trust me. You fear a guy that can constantly move the chains.
Absolutely.
You fear that.
Big third down. You know where they're going. Witten getting the ball. Double him or he gonna push him.
I wish Dez Bryant was here because you know why Witten got all these catches? Because he was Tony Romo's best friend.
No, but
Tony Romo
he was also the number 1 receiver on a lot of seasons for Dallas.
Yeah,
he's been their number 1 receiver.
Okay, here.
Not Dez.
By the way,
the man's a Hall of
did you
Famer.
ever play against him?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go to the week you played against him.
You got to stop. You got to stop Jason Witten.
Okay, for about 8
third
years.
downs, you got to figure out how to get
that. That was the game plan for 8 years. We're all falling in love with the Cowboy O-line now.
Yeah.
The previous 13 years, 9 of them, that's what defensive coordinator
And what you like about what you're saying you don't like about him, Gronk is the next generation. You brought him in. Gronk is that next generation. He's 2.0. He's bigger. You talk about just physically fearing him because of what he can do from a matchup standpoint. It's the same thing. Witten was able to do all of that, and he doesn't have that freakish size or speed, but he's still capable of moving the chains and scoring like
Only
Gronk.
thing Witten don't have is speed, is breakaway speed.
Right.
I'm going to
That's
say
it.
the key thing I heard in this discussion, I don't know who said it, it may have been you, Cowherd. He's not Kellen Winslow. He's not.
Well, who is?
Again, if he's not Kellen Winslow, if he's not Tony Gonzalez, if he's not John Mackey, Mike Ditka.
He's the next one.
If he's
He
not
is the
Shannon
next.
Sharp,
He's the
Ozzie
next
Newsome,
one. He's the next one.
he don't belong
A
with
lot of
them.
hitters aren't Ted Williams in the Hall.
Now look, what
There you go again.
Shannon Sharp deserves to be in the Hall, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
He brought something totally different
He's
to the
got more
tight end
touchdowns than
position.
Shannon. So you're sitting here saying
Numbers don't matter.
that he doesn't
Different
have
era.
Stop with that production
Different
stuff.
era.
That production stuff
And
is
Shannon
ridiculous.
Sharp brought
Shannon-
something completely unique to the tight end position. We had never seen a tight end that size who could move in space the way he did.
Witten did too.
Witten
By the
did.
way, if you ever played in a box from a linebacker perspective, look, wide receivers catch routes and they run routes out of there. Inside of the box is where your money is made at. Witten will be a Hall of Famer simply because if you did numbers inside of that box, that's what linebackers had problems with.
You know what?
How to stop
You're
them.
really into unique. I'm into production. I want to own.
like
I want to own McDonald's. You want the fancy restaurant?
Now we're going to fast food.